Good evening, friends. Thanks for joining me this evening. Today, we are joined by the authors of the best-selling book on Amazon's hot new releases list called Modi Stole My Mask by Amit Bagaria and Savio Rodrigues. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Namaste.
Yeah. Let's start a bit with talking about Amit Bagaria. Amit Bagaria's books are very popular, and he's established a reader base for him, friends. In the span of the years that he's exclusively researched on books that claim to let the readers know about the secrets and hidden truths behind the cover-ups and classified veils. Amit Bagaria writes mostly about international affairs, national interest issues, and political non-fiction. Some interesting facts about Amit are that back in time, when his parents thought he was studying business administration in the USA, he was actually studying journalism. And when they thought he was doing case studies on IBM and Pepsi, when he was actually interviewing the governor of Ohio or a convicted murderer in jail. Later, when he was a consultant for the Aditya Birla Memorial Hospital in Pune, he told Rajshri Birla and Kumar Mangalam Birla their offices would be in the basement of the hospital. As an entrepreneur, Amit has been India's #1 healthcare consultant, India's #1 retail consultant, and India's #1 residential real estate consultant, apart from excelling in several other sectors. As a retail consultant, he wrote prolifically for various retail publications. For one article, he interviewed several industry leaders, including Kishore Biani, considered the father of modern retail in India. Little did poor Mr. Biani know that Amit would lambast him in the article. The next time they ran into each other, Mr. Biani told Amit that being a fellow Marwari, he would have been less critical of him.
Yeah.
It was the same article that led a leading publisher, to approach Amit to write a book back in 2010, but that part of Amit's life only began 7 years later. When he did begin, he did not stop or even pause. He's completed 11 books, of course, which may be many more. I have to check with him. 13, yeah, 13 books. Yeah. And is now just now he has brought out this book with Savio Rodrigues, which is already on #1 in Amazon new book list. Now, Amit, I'd like to ask you a lot of questions, and of course we have with us Savio Rodrigues, who all of you know very well, who's our favorite speaker and also a brilliant writer. So we have friends. This is going to be an interesting session. Because you can hear a lot from them and a lot of beads of knowledge from them. So what I want to ask you first is that either one of you could answer that. Is that if I just take the book and I don't read it, if I see the title, I might think that you're attacking the Prime Minister. Is that the gist of the book? And because I haven't read the book, so I really need to ask you about that. Either Amit or
Savio, shall I answer that?
Yes, please go ahead.
Let me put it like this: that we are neither attacking the Prime Minister nor are we being soft on him. Yeah. So we've said very clearly, right in the beginning of the book, and in a note from the authors, that as the chief executive of the country, the primary responsibility of whatever went wrong must go to him. But is he the only one responsible?
Yeah.
Definitely no. So who else is responsible? And that's what the gist of the book is. Now, as far as the title is concerned, Modi Stole My Mask. The reason for picking the title, there are actually two reasons for picking the title.
Yeah.
The main reason for picking that title is that every Tom, Dick, Harry and their cousin and their neighbor and probably their puppy or their cat was blaming Modi for everything, right? So we thought it's going to resonate well with the Indians of today. Modi stole my mask. Modi did everything, right? So Modi stole my mask. And also the last sentence of the book, although I shouldn't be disclosing it, the last sentence in the last chapter of the book actually says, that last chapter is all about we, the COVIDiots, a take on we, the people. And it talks about everything that we did that we shouldn't have done. everything that we did which compromised our own safety.
Yeah.
And it talks about how we ran away from the Arogya Setu, how we fudged RT-PCR certificates to fly, how we attended parties, how we went to Goa, and all of the wrong things that we did. And the last sentence says, and if we actually personally get COVID-19, we will say Modi stole our mask.
Yeah. Yeah, well explained, Amit. Now, moving on to you, Savio. See, you say that this book will create awareness about the truth of India's COVID-19 crisis and China's role in the pandemic. You also say that this book is going to rattle a lot of powerful people. Can you tell me in which way, Savio?
Well, for starters, let's clearly state that between Amit and I, we both believe that the COVID-19 pandemic is a bioweapon that has been unleashed by China on the rest of the world, most particularly on America and as well as India, and you'll see effects of it on Japan, Taiwan, and countries that oppose China as a nation and are competitive with China. Uh, Being in a health crisis is not a sin, as I would say, because every nation in the world was suffering with the health crisis.
Yeah.
But certain political leaders, certain social leaders in India used the health crisis, which was one of the worst that this country has ever seen and the worst the world has ever seen,
Yeah.
to actually play very low level politics and create confusion and chaos as far as the health crisis is concerned. At a time when all of us should have come together to deal with the crisis and then later on deal with the politics that arose out of the crisis, we chose to belittle the government, belittle the activities, create fear and chaos. Even now, today, there are so many sections of people that don't want to take the vaccines because they're confused about whether this vaccine is better than the other. So there's a lot of communication that has been confused, a lot of aspects of communication that the government itself has failed in communicating at the right
Yeah,
time.
most
So
important.
we have tried to take away, take all the information that was available, research all the data available, and actually see where as a country we have failed. It is not so much as BJP or Congress or any political party or any social institution. It is how have we handled the crisis? Have we succeeded in dealing and containing the pandemic? Or have we failed at that initial stages? Because eventually political parties come and go. India and the people of India live. So I think that's really what it is. So we have actually ripped open everyone. Politicians, China, media. In fact, I quite enjoyed ripping the media off, and Amit will tell you about it, because the media really has, to a certain extent, played the role of a devil rather than a devil's advocate.
I'll just add a little bit to what Savio just said. Just one point. If I'm not mistaken, the chapter in the book on vaccines and vaccination, I think, is the longest chapter in the book. And the reason why it is the longest chapter in the book, if I'm not wrong, is that, like Savio said, the people are confused about vaccines. And we have actually estimated that as many as 27.27%. This is not a generic overall national estimate. It is derived from dividing India's population into 3 age groups and then further subdividing them into rural and urban.
Yeah.
So the number comes to 27.27%. So we've said 27.27% of people in India will not get vaccinated because either they don't want to get vaccinated, or in the case of kids, their parents don't want them to get vaccinated, or the vaccines won't reach them because they live in very remote areas. And by giving all the knowledge out there, giving all the information and the facts out there on various vaccines and various other topics related to vaccines, we hope that this 27.27% number will come down.
Yeah. So let me just narrate two small incidents which will amuse you. One is, we have this shopkeeper who, in the corner of our neighborhood, who belongs to the minority. So he's been postponing having his vaccine for quite some time because he felt that, see, it's just not, it's not genuine and it might create problems and a whole lot of other things. Yesterday, when my husband went there, he said that I've got myself vaccinated, after a very long time. So my husband didn't say anything, he just smiled. Another cousin of mine, he said that, see, you shouldn't even touch these vaccines. They are, they'll create so many problems for you. You should not even touch it. So when we said then, but Modi has, set an example by getting himself vaccinated. He said, do you know, he just got himself vaccinated with water,
Yeah.
and that's why. So you have a lot of people talking different things. I'm sure, as you say, the
At least
percentage
it was
down
water and not nimbu pani, right? So Meenaji, like you said, the shopkeeper may be coming from a less educated background.
Yeah.
I know people who are highly educated, who've got foreign degrees, and who are big industrialists, who are waiting for the Pfizer vaccine. Whereas different efficacy studies around the world have proven that our homemade vaccine, Covaxin from Bharat Biotech, has proved to be far more, far better, far more, the efficacy is higher than the Pfizer vaccine. I myself, unfortunately, could not get the Covaxin because when I got vaccinated, the hospital that we went to, they only had Covishield, so I took Covishield, which does happen to be a British vaccine. But what I'm saying is that there are people still waiting for the Pfizer vaccine. It's shocking.
See, when we were getting our first shot done, we were just all of us. I mean, I went with my mother, my husband was there, and there were a lot of other senior citizens. And what we were all admiring was the disciplined manner in which the hospitals were taking and treating the senior citizens. So we were all admiring Modi ji's concept of making it into different phases. So that's something that most of the public appreciated from the Prime Minister's side. Now, what I'd like to ask you, Amit and Savio, is that, see, how did you conceive this book? Like, how did you get together and decide that you would write this book? And like, how did you share the sections?
So I had actually already started writing the book.
Yeah.
And I approached Savio and I asked him that would he like to publish sections of the book as articles in Goa Chronicle, and he agreed and he did that. So I guess two important sections from or chapters from the book were published in Goa Chronicle as articles. And based on reading them, he said, can I join you as a co-author? And I said, most welcome. And the way we collaborated was very simple. Savio wrote a few chapters and I wrote a few chapters.
Yeah. And how long did the process take? I believe you put in a lot of hours researching all the facts and trying to make sure, because you know that there will be many critics who will try to tear you apart. So how did you work on that?
970 hours and counting. And when I say and counting, is because the editing of the print edition is still going on.
Yeah.
And that's going to take at least 30-40 hours in 2 or 3 rounds. And once that is over, then we are going to re-edit and republish the ebook also. So I would say by the time it's all done, it will be about almost close to 1100 hours of time.
So you can, I think, tell your viewers that the ebook is going to be available on Kindle within a few days, you said?
Day after tomorrow at 5 p.m. At 5
so friends,
PM.
So friends, that's another way you could read the book, because since the popularity is growing, I'm sure you would want to read the book. So
I just want to add, Meenaji, that
please.
Thousands of copies have already been pre-ordered. I mean, the ranking
What is the price of the book,
in Amazon is
Amit?
based on the ranking is based on the pre-orders.
Yeah. What is the price of the book?
69 rupees is the price on Kindle, the ebook, and 399 rupees is the price for the printed book. But the publisher is offering it right now at 359.
Oh, very reasonable. Yes. Yeah, Savio, would you like to comment on that? The question that I asked Amit.
Well, there are very few people in this world that I truly appreciate for their writing skills, but most of all, the ability to analyze data. So when Amit first introduced, when I got introduced to Amit through his through Twitter, and then of course when he sent me the article, I saw a glimpse of somebody I could connect with, because I'm also a person who likes a lot of data. But he had this very polished, very educative way of presenting the data,
Yeah.
compared to what I consider myself to be very rugged and very raw in presentation of data. And I
Yeah.
quite liked that. So I asked Amit, I said, see, you've been doing this, you've through a certain part of the book. Can I be a part of it? And he was very kind to say, why not? Let's do this, because there's a lot of similarities between us. So this is not the first book we're going to work on. We'll be working on a lot of books together, because
Yeah.
I think,
So it's very good,
I think
Savio, because both of you are popular, in your own way. And so that is good for the readers because they will enjoy
no, I
both
think,
sides.
Meena, I think it's very important to understand what Amit tried to do, and
Yeah.
right at the start. And I'm saying that not because he's my co-author, because I genuinely think he analyzes and he puts out data very unbiased, and that's very important. And to me,
Yeah.
that's important. He and I have different views, but our views towards India is very psychocentric. So we
Absolutely.
always put India first, and that's what really data is about. Data is not interpretation based on your biases. Data is interpretation of what the data really stands for, and
Yeah.
how you see the data. And that's what I admire about him, and that's why I requested him if I could be a part of this book. And I'm glad to be a part of the book.
Yeah. And also, Amit, I've been reading very good reviews about the book on social media as well. So because everybody's saying that it's based on facts and a very interesting read. So congratulations to you both again on this.
Thank you. I just want to make a point here.
Yeah. Yeah.
My previous book, which is also a _1 bestseller, called Congress Mukt Bharat, I
Mm.
sent about 25 copies of it to senior Congress leaders, including Rahul
Yeah.
Gandhi, etc.,
Uh,
with a personalized note saying
mm,
that if you find any mistakes in this book, please contact me on such and such mobile number and
mm.
such email ID. I
Yeah.
haven't received any response, which
This
means
was.
that they have no response. Similarly, I think even Savio doesn't know this, that Tom Wadakan gave a copy of the manuscript, because the book hasn't come out. We sent
Mm.
it to a few select people to write reviews, and one of them
Yeah.
is Tom Wadakan.
Yeah.
Tom Wadakan sent it to somebody in Sam Pitroda's team, so I'm sure it's reached Rahul Gandhi. And we welcome anybody from the Congress party or from any opposition party for that matter to write a critique of the book saying that
Yeah.
this piece of data is wrong or that this piece of data has been misinterpreted.
If you expect Rahul Gandhi to read your book, it's like asking for the impossible.
I'm sure he knows
Yeah.
how to read.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I'm sure Rahul Gandhi does know how to read, but if not Rahul Gandhi, I'm sure everybody else in the Congress knows how to read. The problem is, the most important aspect of this book is it's not there to put BJP in the
Yeah.
shining
Please.
light.
Mm.
It's not there. That's not what this book is. If you think this book is about that, no, the answer is not. In fact, Amit and I, we've gone through series of discussion, because in the end, data is what speaks, and that's the only thing we believe in. At the end of the day, it's data, and data is an interpretation of what truth really is from one's perspective. So I'm sure Congress will be extremely upset with the book. And I'm pretty sure certain people in the BJP who don't understand how to read data would also be upset with this book. But I know one
See,
person who will not. That will be Prime
yeah.
Minister Modi.
Yeah. Amitji, see, I just want to ask you a question here. See, because you've been doing all this research on the book. Now, when the second wave of COVID came, did Modi ji not, did he not see this coming? And, why did he not see it coming? Or was it mischief played by people? Could you just tell our viewers about this?
So I can't read Modi ji's mind. The thing is that, as we've written in the book, even when the daily cases in India were below 20,000 in mid-January, the health ministry and the cabinet secretary had started writing to the states where there was a small growth. Any state that had hit the number 1000
Yeah.
at that time, which looks very small today, correct, was warned that they need to be careful and they need to take certain
Yes.
measures. In fact, the cabinet secretary also called for a meeting with the chief secretaries of several states at that time. So the government did take action very early. What unfortunately happened, and I'm saying unfortunately for all of us, for all of India, is that the numbers were far, far, far higher. If you take the multiple of the peak cases in the second wave was 4.23 times the peak cases in the first wave. 4.23 times. Now, an average of the top 20 countries with a population of 50 million or more has been 1.16 times. So the question is, or sorry, 1.66 times. So the question is, do you prepare for a second wave, which is going to be having numbers which is an average of 20 countries, or are you going to think that, oh my God, God is going to punish us much more, and we're going to have 3 times that multiple, right? So the government was only prepared, I guess, for around 1,70,000 cases being the peak in the second wave. And this is something that even Dr. Anthony Fauci has said very, very clearly to 3 Indian television channels. He has said that no one in the world could predict that India would have such a high spike of cases during the second wave. So, Narendra Modi is a human being at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Savio, see, when we talk about the second wave, see, we know that it is not it's a man-made thing, this COVID. So, do you think, see, our country is some way backward, in our strategizing. See, the other countries that are working against us are 10 steps ahead of us. So, why is it that, see, our country is, backward in, preempting all these things? Why is that not happening, Savio?
Well, I think, Meena ma'am, I don't think any nation preempted China actually going ahead with its bioweapon focus. Because China has been dabbling with bioweapons right from 1996. And we have
Yeah.
spoken on several channels about how the PLA, which is the army of China, has been, working on bioweaponry. So unleashing bioweapon was not something anybody expected. Neither did the US, nor India, nor Japan, nor Russia expected it. But it happened. When it happened, the world had to deal with the situation.
Yeah.
So in the first wave, what you saw was America face a lot of hardships because of this bioweapon. Now America is slowly getting out of it, and that is why they are training their guns against China, hoping that there is some accountability towards China, not realizing that some of the people within their own administration were responsible for funding the activities at the Wuhan lab. In this case, Dr. Fauci himself, right? So US also has got a role to play because they did go about funding it, and certain elements in US worked on it. Now, the
You,
one person who
you're talking about when Trump was there.
I'm talking about Dr. Fauci's
No,
fund
no,
that
when you're talking about
when
USA funded them, you're talking about the time when Trump was there.
yes, in fact, Trump was around, but he was probably not even aware that this was
Of it,
funded.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because which is why Trump is actually the only person, the only global leader to have opened his mouth and called the virus from its actual origin, which is the Chinese virus, right? Now, however, you've got Biden that is making the right noises supposedly to try and make China accountable because at somewhere it will lead back to people that could be connected to Biden and the rest of the people over there. Because remember one thing, if Donald Trump lost the election, he lost it on 2 grounds. One was the Black Lives Matters protest, and the other one was the management of the COVID crisis.
Yes.
You're seeing a replica of the same happening in India. It's a copybook, actually, in my opinion. So, why is this happening? It's happening primarily because certain vested nations, certain vested corporates want to get a foothold into a large market in India. And that is really what it's all about. So when we come out with our second book, which Amit and I are writing on China's role, on the World Health Organization's role, you will realize the intricate ties that lie between organizations and countries that actually have allowed for this to happen. Is India weak? I don't think any nation was prepared.
So also, I'd just like to add two things, Veena ma'am. There have been reports. We haven't written about this in the book because there was no way for us to verify this.
Yeah.
But we have both, Savio and I have read reports that before the second wave started, there were parcels, shipments from China where the virus was infused. Shipments from China to India where the virus was infused. So tens of thousands of such parcels, people keep ordering stuff which is Chinese made, spread into Indian society.
It's very frightening.
Yeah, like I said, we haven't said this because there's no way to verify it.
Yeah.
The second thing which I should have answered in your previous question is that why was Modi not prepared for the second wave? And I've already answered that, but I would like to add an important point. Somebody was prepared for the second wave. People like Navneet Kalra and his partners were prepared for the second wave. Navneet Kalra happens to be a very close friend of the first family, of the first son-in-law.
Which they've denied, right?
Sorry?
Which they've denied.
Well, they can't deny it because there's a Rajya Sabha document, which they can't deny a Rajya Sabha document where a minister, I think Jairam Ramesh or whoever at that time, said that that the government has nominated him for a permanent membership of the Delhi Golf Club. So they can deny it they'll deny everything. But the point is that they started importing oxygen concentrators back in November, when the first wave was actually on a very steep fall, right? So very hard-hitting chapter in our book was the second wave planned? And in fact, I've written that also as an article in Goa Chronicle, which has been read by more than 43,000 people already. Was the second wave planned?
Amit, also I want to ask you, is this name Fauci actually Fauzi? Because his daughter has a name, Amina Fauci, and she's working in Twitter as a technical something, So is Fauci actually Fauzi?
I have no idea about that.
Because his daughter's name is Amina Fauci.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah. Okay.
Savio, we need to research that for our next book.
Yeah. Another thing, Amit, is that the latest news is that there's another bird virus that is going to hit us. So if a bird just flies past you or comes anywhere near you, you get the flu. Is this something that you've heard about?
Well, we've had already lots of bird flu.
But they say this is something new.
I haven't heard about it. No.
Yeah.
Well, the avian flu there was a case that has come out in China a day before yesterday.
Yes.
It is the avian flu, which was between animals themselves, between the birds themselves. But now the case shows that the flu can travel from the bird to the human as well. Yes. So there was that one case that came out yesterday. Is it something we have to be worried about? Well, anything to do with China over the last since 2000 onwards, you would find, including the SARS that came in 2003, 2004, then another one that happened sometime in 2009 as well. We need to be a little careful from what's happening from China, because I have no doubt in my mind they are dabbling with certain experiments which are not in the interest of humanity.
Yeah, right. My next question is, how bad is India's total cases and death when compared with larger countries, Amit?
Very, very, very small. Extremely small. And that's what we try to explain right in the beginning of the book. That if you say that Israel has vaccinated 65% of the population, please remember Israel has 0.66% of India's population, right? So when we compare numbers have to be compared in the context of our population, right? You can't say that, Indian Railways carried X passengers and Russian Railways carried Y passengers without saying Indian Railways carried X passengers per lakh of population and Russian Railways carried, X passengers based on their population, right? So we've given all the charts, all the data, which shows a comparison of cases in India, deaths in India, the test positivity rate, the case fatality ratio, and other such numbers, comparing them per lakh or per million with not countries like Israel or Mongolia or small countries. We've compared them only with large countries. We've left out China in all the comparisons because who will believe that China has only had 4,636 deaths due to COVID? Right? That's a whole lot of nonsense. Nobody really believes China's data. So apart from China, we've compared it to 20 large countries, and the numbers are very small, very small. And also, we factored in a study by the University of Washington, Institute of Health and Metrics Evaluation, where IHME said that the University of Washington's IHME said that deaths in India were underreported, and the real figure is 2.97 times. But they also said that deaths in US have been underreported, UK, Germany. They've given a whole list of countries where IHME says that deaths have been underreported. And we factored that and reproduced our death graph, saying that, okay, let's factor the IHME ratios and then assume what the deaths could have really been. So the India official death count went up 2.97 times. And even then, it is lower than most of the other countries.
Yeah.
Right? We've actually, we've also talked about this New York Times report, which talks about the deaths being 14 times higher than what is reported. And we've taken that and we've calculated how many bodies would have to be secretly buried or secretly cremated in order to hide that much number. And it's impossible, right? It's running into some 30 lakh or something. How can you secretly cremate or secretly bury 30 lakh people?
Yeah. Savio, my next question is, is it normal, in a country, for all the media, the mainstream media, to only cover COVID? I mean, there's been no other news. If you're talking about Kerala channels, you're talking about Tamil Nadu channel, any channel, it's only COVID. So, is this to build a sense of fear in the people, or are they instructed to do so? And why can't they show, good stories about the people who are saving all these, the victims? And, there are a lot of good things happening in the midst of COVID. So, is there something wrong with the mainstream media? Or what is happening here? I mean, the scenario is so frightening. The moment you put on the TV, you're seeing all these bodies, or you're seeing all these terrible COVID, caricatures. So it's really frightening for a normal person.
Well, Meena ma'am, to be honest with you, I was just telling somebody this morning who was a little exasperated about all the information that she was privy to and was frightened about. I said, do yourself a favor. First, switch off your TV. Second, switch off your social media, log out, and go and spend time with your daughters.
Yeah, family.
You will be at peace. You will be able to understand that this is a health crisis that can be dealt with. So don't live in fear. I believe media over a period of time has understood that fear sells just like Shah Rukh Khan and sex does for Bollywood, right? So they sell fear. They don't sell hope. The confusion has been further exaggerated or further made larger because of media. Because the media are being the ones that are going about creating that fear psychosis. For example, you had a journalist, a senior journalist like Barkada, burqa that was seen at the crematoriums, burqa that has been seen at the ICU in hospitals.
Yeah.
Now you're wondering, why would somebody be so much like a vulture and actually go about, glorifying death in such a manner when there is turmoil, there is sadness, there is fear, there is confusion. But journalists have been doing that. If you look at the Time magazine's report also, which we have mentioned in our book, a particular one of the largest Hindi selling newspapers, actually carried this crematorium picture with so many people, and they mentioned, almost 30, 40 people being dead. When an actual report, when data that was available, there was only one person, one or two people dead. And that's the problem. The problem is, I think media has been working towards highlighting the negative aspect of it in order to make the governments and certain states look bad. Otherwise, what they needed to do is to go out and tell the people that everything is in control, stay in control, because fear was what was actually causing more harm than the actual COVID.
But my question is, Savio, are they getting instructions to do this? Because on their own, they're not going to do it. They're only working for a company.
Well, I think media companies are always working for somebody's agenda in some point of view. Some of the media companies, there are very few, that I would consider to be actually worth even reading or watching. The point is, at the end of the day, what is the important aspect of this crisis? That is India the only country facing the health crisis? The answer is no. The health crisis is being faced by India. Everybody is trying to do its bit. There are so many COVID warriors fighting out there. Yes, the government has slipped up. Yes, certain states have slipped up. But in the end, the more people we lose, we're not losing them as a Maharashtrian or a Goan or a person from Karnataka. We're losing them as Indians.
Mm.
So an Indian life is lost, and that's what I fail to understand why media does that. In the end, we have to save lives.
You know,
And also, it's not
yeah,
just
please. Yeah.
the question is not as simple as the media worked for, right? They worked for who, XYZ. They worked for Gandhi. They worked for, I'm not talking about Rahul Gandhi, I'm saying the note, right? It's paid news, right? If you allow me, Meena ma'am,
Yeah.
I want to just take a second here to read a very interesting paragraph from the book, uh, if you allow me.
Yeah, please.
Let me just find it.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Savio, can you just answer this question in brief? She's asking you, just a second. Savio, sir, what do you think in the order of Joe Biden to probe the COVID origin? Will China try to pressurize USA as it pressurized WHO?
I have no doubts China will use everything in its power to pressurize any country or any organization that's looking to investigate
Yeah.
the origin of the coronavirus.
Yes.
But the good aspect of what we were saying in the last 1 year is suddenly now getting complete global attention
Yeah.
from media and from representatives of the medical community from all over the world. And people are questioning the origin, and they are now finding out that it did come out from a lab. It is not necessarily a freak of nature that the World Health Organization termed it as last year, but they are now seeing it as being man made and something that's produced in a lab. So I think while China will use all its resources, not only diplomatic but also media, to spin stories around and create confusion, I'm sure the truth in this will certainly emerge, because 3.3 million people dead, someone needs to be accountable for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Amitji?
So
Yeah,
I
please.
found this paragraph.
Yeah, please.
Where did the second wave start? It started in Maharashtra, which is ruled by Congress and its allies. It had 53% of all COVID cases and 45.3% of all deaths in India in the 40-day period from March 1st to April 30th, 2021. Maharashtra, which has less than 9% of India's population.
Yeah.
Who created the first panic about shortage of hospital beds, oxygen, and drugs like remdesivir? Maharashtra again. Which state has 21.2% of the cumulative cases and 29.4% of the cumulative deaths? Maharashtra again. Who does the blame go to? Narendra Modi.
Yeah. So that explains a lot, Amitji, because we know what Maharashtra stands for, especially since the time that this party has this three-party has come into governing the state. So there's a lot of hanky-panky happening in the state.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. Okay, Amitji, my next question is, which states are the most and least affected? Which managed the pandemic well and which did not?
So again, I'll have to look up the data, but whether they manage the pandemic well or not is something that is a very qualitative thing, which I don't know if we can answer that. But
Yeah.
the quantitative data I can give you, which states have the maximum amount of cases per lakh and the maximum amount of deaths per lakh, I can give you the data. I'll just in a second over here.
Yeah.
So in terms of the maximum number of cases per lakh, Delhi is number 1, followed by Kerala, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, and then Karnataka.
Karnataka.
Yeah, Karnataka is number 5. So Delhi, Kerala, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Karnataka.
And
in terms of
the well-managed ones?
Well, we don't know whether they are well managed or underreported, but the lowest is Bihar, followed by UP, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Assam.
Okay.
Now, in terms of deaths, I don't remember it, but I think it's all pretty much the same. Delhi is number 1, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh. No, Punjab is number 4. Punjab actually has the highest case fatality ratio, and that case fatality ratio is like unbelievably high. It's 2.38% in Punjab compared to the national average of 1.09%. So it's more than double the national average.
So do you think that, during the farmers' agitation, the farmers were spreaders?
Absolutely. The farmer agitation has been the biggest super spreader, without any doubt, for the simple reason that how did Delhi get most affected? Maharashtra, as we've also said in the book, got affected because Bollywood is responsible for that, right? They are the ones who started in October. They started partying. They started going to Dubai or to London or to other places. They started going to countries which had the second wave going on at that time, and then came back to Bombay and partied. And the other, the business folks and the rich stock market traders and all of them partied together with that. So that's how it started in Mumbai. How did it start in Delhi? It started in Delhi because of the farmer agitation. And why is it so high in Punjab? It's because of the farmer agitation. Even Haryana numbers are high. And we've also said, just to be fair, that the Kumbh Mela was wrong and that it should have been cancelled.
Yeah. Okay, Amitji, can you take this question? It's an accidental leak from Wuhan or an intentional biowar. If it's a biowar, don't you think that China has underestimated the fallback on them? Are they so naive?
No, I think it's better Savio answers this. He's written the chapter on Wuhan, on China.
Well, personally, I'm sure China was aware that they would face a backlash. But China is also pretty sure that the ecosystem that they have created over the last 20, 25 years across the world will will hold stead and will not allow them to actually face as much criticism as what is being seen right now. So, which is why for the whole 1 year, nobody really criticized China as doing it right now. Is China powerful? Of course, China is powerful. China's got its tentacles right into the US. They have the money, a lot of money spent into the US, a lot of money spent into other countries, Pakistan, now Sri Lanka, a lot of Africa. Is there any nation that has raised its voice against China?
Yeah.
It's America that when it had Trump, it's Australia, and very little of India, but they've not really raised the voice against China. And India won't at this point of time. So is China powerful? Yes. Can we defeat China with what it's done? Of course we can. But it cannot be done by one nation. It has to be done collectively. And in order for it to be done collectively, there has to be an unbiased investigation, which China is never going to allow.
Yeah.
But the noise has to continue.
Yeah. Amitji, perhaps you could take Lakshmi's question. How can the government win when the opposition doesn't even care for common people? They spread in its first place, therefore, again, the second wave. Ridiculous. That's, what you explained, she's just taken the question from that. So she's saying that when the opposition doesn't care for common people and they spread it in the first place.
So I'm not sure I understand the question, because she's saying,
Yeah.
how can the government win when the opposition doesn't care? So it's a little sort of
Yeah, no, what she's saying is that, see, Modi is in a helpless position because, see, the opposition are working against him. And this spread is largely due to, their efforts to make it spread. So in such a situation, what can the central government do? That's what perhaps she meant.
I wish I didn't have to say this, but it's too late now. 1 month ago, Narendra Modi should have declared a national emergency, like Indira Gandhi did in 1975. And she should have taken Rahul Gandhi and all his cronies and put them in jail. And Barkha Dutt and all her colleagues also. Our second wave would have started dying much earlier.
Yeah.
And they should have been kept in jail for the next 3 months so that we don't have a third wave.
Yeah.
We needed a national emergency, but unfortunately, Mr. Modi is already called a fascist, right? So people would not understand if he took that move.
Yeah.
And like Indira Gandhi lost the next election, he would have lost the next election. But perhaps he should have made that sacrifice, Savio. Perhaps let some kind of hodgepodge government of like a Mahagathbandhan come, form the next government, fall within 12 to 13 months, and then come back with a 400 plus seat majority. I think the country needs some strong action.
Well, I would have to agree with Amit on just one aspect of it. You see, the crisis was not a state-based crisis. It was an actual national crisis. So while I understand that the government at the first wave was getting criticism from different states, we must understand that if we had to deal with the crisis, the center had to put its foot down and said, okay, listen, we need to step in and resolve this health crisis quickly and not pander to the political upmanship of the other political leaders. People like Arvind Kejriwal, people like Rahul Gandhi, people like Stalin and all these leaders, and Mamata Banerjee for certain, who were only interested in actually pinning down the Indian Prime Minister. I think the Prime Minister should have come out and said, okay, this is an emergency. It had a right to declare an emergency and health emergency at a state, at a national level. It was not a political emergency, it was a health emergency. He was talking to a lot of people during the first wave. People were confident, people were hanging on to his every word, and people believed him. In the second wave, he stopped that communication, and I, for the life of me, cannot understand why. Because if he would have come out on screen and communicated once, everybody would have rallied around Narendra Modi again, and they would have fought the pandemic more aggressively and more assertively. And which is why I agree with Amit that there should have been an emergency, an health emergency called. not a political emergency that Indira Gandhi called for political benefit. This
Yeah.
is not an emergency for political benefit. It was to save the country and to save lives.
Yeah.
Narendra Modi would have not lost any other elections if he called the emergency, if he would have acted sternly, and if he would have reached out to the people. One of the fallbacks or the drawbacks of dealing with the crisis at this point of time has been lack of communication at a mass level,
Yeah.
which was what was happening during the first wave. People were coming out, people came out on the road, people lit candles, people were one. That did not happen in the second wave.
And also the fact, Savio, that there are a few ministers who don't even know what to say. I mean, they talk nonsense and it irritates people when they're already, in a troubled, times. So that is also another thing, Savio, because these people should know what they are saying, at least be responsible for what they say. So you have both. You have lack of communication, and you have communication by people who don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I can say so very confidently. One of the BJP spokesperson on a discussion on a popular, news channel actually said that, I don't know whether God has forsaken us or not, but Narendra Modi will not forsake us. Now, if you're going to make such irrational,
Yeah,
insensitive
absolutely.
statements,
Yeah, yeah.
when you put God above Narendra Modi, you put Narendra Modi above God,
Above, yeah, yeah.
just because you need to pander to the sycophancy of
Yeah.
being a spokesperson, then you're only going to get brickbats. And that's exactly what's happening.
Was it a
So
lady,
sensible.
Savio?
Oh, well.
Yeah. Meena ma'am, one very, very important data point which we mentioned in the book about Modi is people saying, especially the Arvind Kejriwals and the Mamata Banerjees of the world, that he did nothing. On January 11th, when the average daily cases in the whole of India were only 18,020,
Yeah.
18,020. He had a virtual meeting with all chief ministers.
Yes.
He had the next meeting on 8th of March when the cases were only 16,745. So they had actually come down from the
Yeah.
January meeting. He had the next meeting just 9 days later when the average cases were 25,138. Then he had a meeting another 20 days later when the average cases crossed 1 lakh. Then again 6 days later when they crossed 1,50,000. And again 9 days later when they crossed 2.5 lakhs. Right? So he had these 6 virtual meetings before we started hitting our first wave peak, or at least 5 of them were before. And Mamata Banerjee did not attend any of these meetings.
Yeah, yeah. Very vicious people. They don't care about humanity. Savio, this question is for you. Savio, sir, do you think the toolkit really made it to defame and insult India by our own opposition parties?
Well, to be brutally honest, I think the toolkit was made to defame Narendra Modi
Yeah.
and to show India in poor light. You see, eventually this is where people get completely confused. And maybe it's because of political polarization. The issue is not Narendra Modi. You must understand it is the position that he occupies, the chair that he occupies, which is that of the Prime Minister of India. India is larger, of larger importance when compared to BJP, Congress, or any political party.
Yeah.
The citizen is more important than the political party. So when Narendra Modi represents the Prime Minister's position, and there are a set of leaders that are targeting him and the position of being a Prime Minister, then that's despicable, because that reflects India, that reflects the nature of our people. So it is wrong. The toolkit was aimed at destabilizing Narendra Modi, thereby destabilizing India, because he represents India when he sits on the chair as the Prime Minister of India.
Yeah.
If there was, I've said this before in your program, man, that if there was any other Prime Minister who was sitting in Narendra Modi's position, I would have still supported him, because this is a national health crisis.
Yeah.
And we have to get out of it. We have time to play politics. That politics is after we save lives.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Amitji, see, my next question is, why did India faces a shortage of vaccines, hospital beds, oxygen, and COVID-19 treatment drugs?
So all of these have been very, very amply covered in the book. I'm sorry, but there is no short answer to this.
Yeah.
It will probably take more than 20-25 minutes to
Yeah.
correctly
You could
answer
just
this question.
tell the viewers a little bit, and then the rest they can read.
So again, the shortage of vaccines is because the vaccine vulturism that was done by Congress, Akhilesh Yadav of Samajwadi Party, and the media, starting in when the vaccination program was announced in the beginning of January. All of these people, Manish Tiwari and Jairam Ramesh, Randeep Surjewala, all of them put out tweets and press statements, etc., etc. Don't take the vaccine. In fact, Satish Acharya, the famous cartoonist, right? We've said in the book, if I'm not wrong, what the number is, that he personally is responsible for 6,000 deaths because he put out a series of cartoons making fun of the vaccination program.
Is it?
So, yeah, absolutely.
Terrible.
A series of
Terrible.
them. Yeah. So he's personally responsible for 6,000 deaths, and I've spoken to a lawyer friend of mine in Delhi to file a case against him.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it has to be
yeah.
done. I mean,
Yeah.
we admired him as a cartoonist, but this is not something he should do.
Yeah, and then he goes and tweets a picture of himself taking a vaccine. And after that, he continues to do the anti-vaccine cartoons. So the vaccines, the problem was that Bharat Biotech, which people don't understand is a very, very, very small company, they got scared. They got scared that their vaccines wouldn't sell. So they did not accelerate their vaccine manufacturing program. It's as simple as that. Now, as far as Serum Institute is concerned, Serum Institute did manufacture a good number of vaccines. But then the US, after Biden took over, the leftist media's favorite, Joe Biden stopped the export of raw materials to the Serum Institute, right? Because the pharma lobby was working, right? And the pharma lobby is the second most powerful lobby in the US, the big pharma, as they call it, right? And the idea was, Joe Biden's idea and his administration's idea was very simple. Force India to import American vaccines, right? But we have somebody cleverer than Joe Biden. His name is Ajit Doval. And as we've written in the book, right, when India started facing a crisis, Mr. Doval, and we've only speculated, we have no confirmation of this, we've speculated because there is an official statement by the White House that our national security advisor, Ajit Doval, spoke to Jake Sullivan, America's national security advisor, and then everything was sorted out. Well, I'm guessing that the call was, hi, Mr. Sullivan, do you know that we are going to blacklist American defense manufacturers from our defense acquisition program, which is the world's largest defense acquisition program? And the defense lobby, which in America is called the military industrial complex, is 200 times more powerful than the pharma lobby. And that's when the raw material export was opened up again. And Mr. Jaishankar made a visit last week.
Amit, this question is for you from Jaydev. Any reason why Poonawalla went outside?
He himself has said that he was threatened by ministers.
Shiv Sena, is it?
Well, he didn't use the word Shiv Sena. When somebody asked him, ministers from where, he said, if I expose that, then there will be a fire. But if he lives in Maharashtra, then your guess is as good as mine.
Question for Savio. Is it possible to genetically modify the virus to mutate it with a time factor built into it? If so, then we are doomed.
In 2017, in the Ministry of Defense, what you would call curriculum, and a particular book was taught to the students of the Defense Ministry. In that book, it talks about how you can genetically modify bio warfare weapons. And I have no doubt in my mind that the virus. Okay, so this is what really is the news going around in the circles that's investigating the bioweapon. That PLA had a virus with them. That virus was a powerful virus that now needed to have been treated by people at the Wuhan virology lab, and that treatment was by basically putting spike proteins, or which is essentially amino acids of particular numbers that helps in transmission of the coronavirus from animals to animals, from animals to human. And that was precisely what Professor Xi Jingli's research was all about. Which is why do I say it's a bioweapon, and why is it able to mutate? The reason why it's able to mutate is primarily because it has been worked upon. It's not a natural virus. It is a man-made virus. And the most important aspect is the first cases of COVID in China were at the PLA hospital.
Yeah.
If the Hunan seafood market was actually the area of the virus where people were caught with the virus, then they should have actually gone to any one of the civilian hospitals in China. But they did not go to a civilian hospital. The first cases were reported at a military hospital,
Yeah.
which would eventually lead us to believe that maybe the first cases came out of Wuhan lab, because Wuhan lab was not only a civilian lab, but it was also a military lab doing military based experiments or military directed experiments. That's the reason why I think it is genetically modified.
My question for you, Amitji, from Sanjat Patnaik. Questions to the experts. Who is the owner of the PR in case of coaxin?
Who's the owner of?
Who's the owner of the PR in case
IPR.
of
IPR.
Coax.
It's Bharat Biotech. It's
Yeah.
completely been developed by them.
Yeah. Amit, my next question is, did the Prime Minister divert money for constructing the new Central Vista instead of fighting COVID-19?
So again, that's a whole big chapter in the book. I would recommend people to read the book. And there are a lot of people, Meena ma'am, that I can see their comments. People are asking, can you pre-book it on Amazon?
Yes,
You
yes.
can pre-book it on Amazon. Please follow either Savio's or mine Twitter handles to see how you can pre-book it on Amazon. In any case, the book is going to be out now at what time? It's already 8 o'clock. So it's going to be out in about 45 hours from now.
Yeah.
So Central Vista is again too big a chapter to explain, but I'll just give you the gist of it.
Yeah.
That only 1,350 crores is being spent on the Central Vista up to August 2022 for the 75th for the 75th anniversary of India's Independence Day. So 1,350 crores, which is 0.47% of the money that the central government alone is spending on COVID relief.
Savio, for you, due to think India will try to again bond up after the virus extinct. She's talking about uniting people, opposition parties uniting with the center. I'm not sure about that question.
Well, let me hazard a guess and
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
say that the people of India will bond. They've always bonded together.
Yeah.
We will fight the virus together, and people who are in the opposition, of course, will continue to do what they do best, which is to whine, and that's part and parcel of Indian politics. But as citizens of this country, the most important aspect for us to do is to save lives. And the more we continue to put out information, the reason why Amit chose to write this book and the reason I chose to join him was to put out the truth about the information. There was just too much of lies, too much of misinformation, too much of fear. And that's the real problem. The problem is nobody wants to put out the truth. The truth is, are we dealing with a health crisis? Yes. Did we take some wrong measures? Probably inaccurate measures at that time. But are we getting out of the situation? Yes. We should. I don't think we're going to let the situation die as Indians and let our fellow Indians continue to die.
Meena ma'am,
Amit,
there's this person who
yeah,
keeps commenting on your timeline,
yeah,
obviously using a fake name of Arnab Goswami. His
yeah, yeah.
last question was, no, the Central Vista should be stopped. Yes, Mr. Arnab Goswami, I'm answering you right now. The Central Vista money can be spent on vaccinating people. Well, Mr. Goswami, the fake name, there is enough money for vaccines. Go get yours.
Really, yeah, yeah. Amitji, see, just a last question before we wind up. See, what is your next book about? Could you tell us? Have you started working on it? And just a brief about that.
Well, we are actually, Savio and I are actually writing 3 books together.
Yeah.
One book we don't want to talk about, we don't want to disclose it yet, but
So, is
that
it a
has
book
2
a
other.
day?
No, not at all. So that book has that book has 2 other authors. One belongs to the Muslim community and one to the Sikh community.
Yeah.
So there are 4 of us, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, coming together to write a book, something to do with India. But the 2 books which we are working on currently, which we don't know how long it will take to finish. One is, like Savio said, it's about China and WHO's role uh, on COVID, and that book is not specific to India; it affects the whole world. So we hope to address the global market with that book. The other book that we are writing is just to relax ourselves in all this times where all of this stuff is gotten on our mind. Is a humorous book called The Great Indian Debate Show. So more about that when we are ready to talk about.
Amit and Savio, just one last question, since you spoke about that. Why is it that sane voices like you and Savio's, a lot more, many people are there, but very few of these same voices, are heard by the center. The center is making the same mistakes again and again, and we keep reminding them, please do this, please do that. If you want the public in your hand, please do this, please. They just seem to be, it all just goes above their head. I mean, is it that good people are few and bad people are more, or what is it? What's happening?
Well, who is the center? Mr. Modi does not have the time to listen to everybody, right? And as far as the party is concerned, I don't want to make a comment, but Savio and I share the same feelings about the party. The party is not much different from other political parties in India. As far as the government is concerned, Savio and I were talking about it just an hour ago, that a very, very senior person in the government, extremely senior, has said very, to me confidentially, and therefore I'm not going to obviously talk about his, who he is, that 85% of the officers in the government are against Mr. Modi.
Oh.
Because they belong to the Congress ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
They've been nurtured over the decades. And to your specific question, is the government listening? I think the government is listening to us, because just to give you an example about Central Vista, the moment my article on Central Vista came out in Goa Chronicle, within a couple of days, I got a call from the Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Urban Affairs. He personally said that, look, first of all, on behalf of the minister and all other senior officers in the government, I want to thank you for being a non-government person who has brought out the truth. I also want to tell you that there is one sentence in your article which is wrong. So if you could have that corrected. And since that day, his ministry has been interacting with me, almost every second or third day, giving me more data. And I've also shared some data with them and asked them to investigate. One of the things I've asked them to investigate, and the investigation has begun, right, is that how many buildings across India which are rented by government ministries, departments, and government units are owned by Congress leaders.
Oh.
And the government has started an inquiry based on my recommendation.
Very good.
When the truth comes out, well, I don't know beyond 52 seats how many more the Congress can crash to, but when the truth comes out, they will really be hurting.
Yeah. Amit, you look very serious, but you've got a very good sense of humor. So we really enjoy that.
My wife keeps telling me that whenever I have a camera in front of me, I start looking serious. I don't know
You
why.
freeze up. Thank you for this wonderful session, Savio and Amit. And wish you all the success in the coming 3 books as well. And viewers, you know where to get your books. And the ebook will be available on Kindle. So these are the places that you could pre-book and buy. So wish you all the success, Savio and Amit. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
God
Thank
bless.
you.
Yeah. Good night.
Good
Good night.
night. Good night.
Good night. Good night.